thing that they did at the reorganizational meeting was assign new committee chairs. So the Common Council every 2 weeks has their general body meeting, and then the other week is the committee meeting. So it goes general meeting, committees, general meeting, committees every other week. So the committees are really kind of where you do more nitty gritty stuff of theoretically talking about legislation and policy. So each committee got a new appointed a new committee chair. So the first two committee meetings that happened this week, so on the third, were the Civil Service and Legislation. So Civil Service, the new chair is Rashid Wyatt, who again was the only dissenting vote, and he was prior to this term he was the finance chair. So this is really it is a demotion. I think Councilmember Nowakowski promoted that posted on social media that he was promoted to finance chair. So the Civil Service Committee is scheduled. They meet from 9:45 to 10. So they scheduled 15-minute meetings twice a month, and we can get into a little bit of how the ramifications of that. But the Civil Service meeting was extremely short. It lasted under 2 minutes. So I think we can watch the entire Civil Service meeting right here.
Item number 1, appoint complaint clerk.
Motion to receive and file items number 1 through 5.
Motion to receive and file on the 5, seconded by Councilmember Rivera.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Rivera.
So that was the city's civil service meeting. So we can get a little into later. I was terminated from the city of Buffalo, and I suspect that there were some civil service violations. And I think one of the reasons that there's so much is wrong with the civil service in the city is that the Common Council schedules intentionally 15-minute civil service meetings every other week. So the entire board of directors of the city, they spend a half an hour a month talking about civil service, and really all they do is, like you see, is these appointments came before us, approve, move on. So kind of intentionally done, and I need to research the history of civil service. I don't think it's always been that way, but civil service is by far the shortest meeting. It's always scheduled for 15 minutes, and a 2-minute meeting is not out of the ordinary. So I'm optimistic Rashid Wyatt, he's the civil service, and I think we don't have a Republican or a minority like a minority person, or a minority leader on the council. But I think Rashid Wyatt, we'll see, he has the potential to maybe be a dissenting or a critical of the voice, because we all know that we need that on the council right now. So that was the civil service meeting this week. In the civil service, the official definition according to the Common Council rules is it charges the Civil Service Committee all matters relating to the creation and abolishment of officers and employees. So next was, and I'm not going in order, but I'm going in order of kind of as I see it importance this week. So the next meeting was the Committee on Legislation. So the council rules charge that charge to the Committee on Legislation all matters relating to local laws, ordinances, and general legislation, except matters referable to the Committee on Civil Service. So this is really where policy, local laws, ordinances are supposed to be discussed. They're rarely discussed, but that's the intention of the Legislation Committee. So again, it was very short. We can actually watch the entire legislation meeting right now, and that's exactly what we'll do.
Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for being in today's Legislation Committee.
In Joel Ferroletto, the Delaware council member, he was the Legislation Committee before last year, and he is the same, so they didn't make any changes. But that's Joel Ferroletto, who is the chair of the Legislation Committee.
Meeting. We do not have any public hearings today, so I will not remind everyone of the 3-minute rule that we usually do. All of the public hearings that were scheduled for today were moved to 2 weeks from today because the notices went out with the wrong date because the meeting's today instead of yesterday. So we have a very brief meeting, and with that, we will start from the top.
Okay, so the clip cut short, but they really, as you can see, it was kind of comical that they made some sort of clerical errors, so there was no public hearing. So it was a very short meeting. I apologize, my clip ran a little short. but the legislation committee is online. So those were kind of the two more minor council meetings this week. But I really wanted to spend the rest of this segment on the committee meetings talking about some of the more major issues. So the next one was the finance committee. So the finance committee, according to the council rules, they charged to the committee on finance all matters concerning the budget and the issuance of bonds. Council member Nowakowski, as I mentioned earlier, he was essentially promoted from civil service chair to the new finance chair. And the finance committee is so important because obviously money. And as you may or may not know, the city's budget has been running on American Rescue Plan dollars now for a few years, and those expire at the end of the year. And there's really no plan on how the city is going to maintain services moving forward. So the finance committee is going to be vital to that. But really, one of the major discussions in that meeting this week was item 23-1140. So this was a resolution sponsored by Council Member Rashid Wyatt. It was titled The Reallocation of Funds for COVID-19 Relief to the City of Buffalo District Small Businesses. So this was really a major discussion. The city got nearly $300 million from the federal government as part of the American Rescue Plan for COVID dollars. So the city at this point has spent more than half or about half of it just to plug budget holes. So instead of, improving the infrastructure, buying things like fire trucks or, hard physical assets that improve our lives, they've really just been essentially plugging holes in the budget and giving themselves raises. So I'll read a little bit of this resolution. So here we go. So whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on small businesses across the city of Buffalo, resulting in financial hardships and closures for many entrepreneurs, and whereas the purpose of ARP, American Rescue Plan Fund, for cities is to provide financial relief and support to local governments in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It aims to address the immediate and long-term impacts of the pandemic by funding a wide range of eligible activities such as public health measures, economic recovery initiatives, essential services, and infrastructure improvements. The funding is intended to help cities recover, rebuild, and strengthen their communities, while also promoting equity and addressing disparities exacerbated by the pandemic. Where is the Bray Miller Market? So you may not be familiar, but a little while ago, the Bray Miller Market, which is a downtown grocery store, had sought a forgivable loan of over $500,000. So there was some fighting between the executive branch and the council to reallocate a portion of these funds to support small businesses in each of Buffalo council districts. So essentially, what happened is the Bray Miller Market requested $500,000 forgivable loan from the ARP funds. The mayor really wanted to push it because we needed a grocery town down store, and the council eventually obliged. And the negotiation that they got this money for small business development in each of the council districts. So while it is clear that the Bray Miller Market suffered financial losses during the pandemic, it is of the utmost urgency that ARP funding be allocated to a wide net of small businesses that experience hardships in order to help stabilize our local economy and meet the criteria to address disparities exacerbated, I'll get that word right eventually, into the pandemic. So essentially, really the negotiations is each council member got an allocation of $62,506 for businesses in each council district. So each council member got $62,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about all the small businesses in the city, so each district had $62,000 to divide. And again, remember, we got nearly $300 million from the American Rescue Plan, and none of that money has hit the streets. It's just sitting in a bank account collecting interest, and really, essentially, it sounds like a lot, but it's really just peanuts when you think about the larger picture. So, the discussion that was in the council this week was really the finance chair and the member of the Office of Strategic Planning kind of talking about how this program's going. So let's watch some clips from that.
Take from the table item number 17.
I move to remove from the table item number 17.
Seconded by Councilmember Bowman.
Item number 17, reallocation of funds for COVID-19 relief.
This item is open, and we are joined by Commissioner Delano Dowd, Lisa Hicks.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, I asked Ms. Hicks about the process because I got some calls from some residents, from businesses who were not eligible to get the funding due to back taxes. And so I think that we had that conversation early on when we had some of the small businesses come in, and some of them talked about, in previous terms when they tried to get grant money, they were hindered because of back taxes. In this particular case, most of them had back taxes because they weren't in business. So how do we overcome that in order for these folks to get this money? I know it's been a delay in getting that funding, but that's the one thing that I did want to ask the question: how do we get around that? Because again, many of these businesses were dramatically impacted back by COVID. And so to say to them, oh, we can't give you the money because of back taxes kind of begs the question, okay, well, what are we doing,
Lisa Hicks, Director of Development in the Mayor's Office of Strategic Planning. So there's a rule, I guess, in the charter that we're prohibited from granting funds through grant programs to businesses that have outstanding tax liabilities. So what we've been doing is really just kind of implementing that through the letter of the charter and code, just to make sure that there's no issues with being, audited. We do provide support and resources to businesses who have been denied based on their outstanding tax liabilities, understanding that every business is going to be different, and their full financial picture. It's not just their tax liabilities. It's, what are you bringing in revenue? What are your other expenses? So, to assist a business is not just to say, okay, let's get your tax liability taken care of so that you can receive the grant. It's kind of looking at the whole picture, the overarching picture of the business and how we can support them. We do have a list of reasons why businesses have been denied. And I think there have only been 4 so far in the process where they were denied based on outstanding property tax liability. Many of the businesses that have applied either are current or they're leasing space, so they don't have a tax liability owed to the city at all. So I can run through that, but I just wanted to first address that question, and I don't know if Thomas Buford has anything additional to add from a technical assistance perspective.
Okay. Yeah. Well, to stick to where you are, because we asked for it to be flexible, more flexible, I would think that we would be going around however we could to assist those businesses. And so even though the charter says, okay, they can't, if they have back taxes, I would think that because of COVID, there should be some type of amendment or exemption for them because of the situation. This wasn't something that they foresaw. So that, again, we asked for it to be flexible so that we can get this money to those struggling businesses. And they're going to continue to struggle if they're behind on taxes. So it just, everything that we can do. And I know Thomas, hopefully through their company, because I know that if they can't get the grant, there's an opportunity for a loan. And so hopefully we can assist them in that. But to hear that a business is turned away and we haven't found a creative way to assist them just kind of misses the point of what we were trying to do.
So I don't want to say that we haven't found a creative.
So that's a brief clip from the finance meeting. This link is on my webpage, buffalocomptroller.net/therapy. So if you'd like to keep watching the whole finance committee, there's a longer discussion. But essentially, as you can see, the city hall is really struggling to get this money out the door. So it's sitting in bank accounts. Each council district has $62,000 to divide amongst all the small businesses in their district, and it's not even clear if a penny or a nickel has gone out the door to help, small businesses. And I think our current economy with, rising everything, rising inflation, rising taxes, user fees, there's just lots of small businesses and people struggling out there. And it's kind of sad that City Hall can't get money out the door. So this will be a big kind of issue in current finance committee, and also, the rest of the American Rescue Plan dollars that haven't been spent, that are just sitting in a bank account collecting interest. Those all have yet to hit the streets. I suspect, and probably my theory, and probably the betting money is on that money will just be used again to plug budget holes. So that was the finance meeting, the next kind of big meeting that was on the committee was community development. So the community development, according to the council rules, are charged with all matters relating to work or improvement to be met in whole or in part by revenue from another government unit, including all matters relating to the Buffalo Urban Renewal programs within the city of Buffalo. So Joe Golombek is, again, the community development chair. And this committee really hears a lot of things. If like somebody wants to build a tavern in a neighborhood, you'll have a lot of residents get up and so really any sort of community related thing gets discussed here. So the major discussion from this week's community development meeting was item 23-2203, P. Palawai, concerns City of Buffalo water fluoridation. So a citizen wrote a letter to Councilmember Wyatt, who was speaking in that early clip in finance, about the city's fluoridation water. So I'll read that now briefly. So dear Councilman Wyatt, I am grateful I had the chance to speak with you last weekend about our shared concern regarding the continued lack of fluoridation in the city's water. I know that we agree that an essential role of government is the safeguarding of the health and well-being of its citizens. Up until June 2015, Buffalo had filled one aspect of this important role by maintaining a fluoridated water system. However, that was stopped and has yet to be reinstated. I believe there are a number of measures the city should take without further delay. Among them, the expedient restoration of fluoridated water, the dissemination of information to the city families and to the healthcare community through multiple means, in multiple languages, and with frequent updates. The initiation of citywide outreach programs that seek to compensate for the unfluoridated water, especially for the pediatric community. I thank you so much for your good work and your commitment to this issue. And if there's any way I can be of assistance to you in your office, please let me know. Pat Palawai, PNP. I'm not sure what PNP means, but so to kind of bring people up to speed, we all remember Flint, Michigan, and how they had, the poisoning of their water and the lead supply. So a report had came out, I think last year or two, that the city stopped fluoridating the water at some point in 2015, and they didn't tell anyone. It was buried in some technical report, so it was unclear why, how, who took fluoride out of the water. And how this got found was that children in the city of Buffalo, some pediatricians and dentists started to notice that, high levels of children were coming in with cavities. So I think that was kind of what helped bring this to light. But essentially, fluoride, at least fluoride, has helped to show with cavity prevention. So what you had, since the fluoride was taken out of the water, and I'm not pro or anti, I could see both sides of that, because fluoride is, a chemical that's used for, I think it's an industrial farming or something. So I'm open to whether fluoride should or should not be in the water. But one thing that I think I strongly believe, and I think we all do, is that we need transparency on this issue. If there's fluoride in the water, we need to know. If there's not fluoride in the water, we also need to know that so people can prepare. So you had children and families who thought fluoride is in the water and then not giving their children fluoride to prevent cavities. So they were under the assumption that there was fluoride in the water because no one ever told them. And then it's been very unclear. The mayor and the Buffalo Water Board and O.J. McFoy have said, "Oh yeah, we're putting it in soon. It's going to be soon." I think they said the end of 2023, and it's still unclear if, when, how. It's not clear if the fluoride will ever be. And it's just sad because we need a community discussion. Our water is one of our most important assets here on the Great Lakes, and this legislative body, and it's unclear, where people stand. So let's watch a brief clip from the Community Development Committee.
Item 10, concerns City of Buffalo water fluoridation.
Motion to open.
Okay, motion to open. We do have some people here to speak on this item. If you could come down to the microphones on either side of the room, please. And if you could please state your name and where you reside for the record.
And Mr. Chair, good?
Yeah, Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Pat from my district for writing this. She saw me a couple of times while I was cutting my grass and was very diligent in talking about her concerns about fluoride.
Discussion.
And as Councilman Wyatt judiciously mentioned, that sometimes is the first line of defense for some kids who can't either get to the dentist or can't afford a dentist. And when that's taken out of the water, which now at this point I think is less than 1 part per million over the last 8 years, I have sent these councilmen, as well as the Brown administration, many studies. Our association have sent the proven effectiveness at fluoride at the right percentage, which is 7 parts per million. It does the work. There's been countless studies, comparative studies, randomized clinical trial studies, systematic reviews, meta-analysis, the proper studies, what we're talking about, that have been done, that have proven the effectiveness for 75 years. We've had fluoride in here up till 9 years ago. I can't figure it out. Now, we've gone about it to talk to different councilmen. We've met with the deputy mayor. We've met with Commissioner McFoy. We've talked to him about it. Yes, I thought it was supposed to be started in June, where we wouldn't have to be here right now. Or I thought it was going to be started in October, and here we are in January, and it still hasn't been started. How do we justify that to the kids and the people of Buffalo, New York? How do we? And there already is stories of kids having a lot more cavities than before, missing days of school, sick from abscesses. Adults have to call in sick of work because they got to go to the dentist and figure out what's going on with their mouth. This is a pretty easy, straightforward thing. And talk about equity and inclusion. I mean, you get the water, and whether you're on the east side, the west side, the north side, south side, everybody's getting the right amount of fluoride to prevent tooth decay. It's pretty straightforward here. And I can't understand what's going on. And I've been in contact, like I said, I've been in contact with a number of politicians about this, and I can't get anywhere with it. This council needs to do something. You need to approach Mayor Brown, who's a nice guy. I like him a lot. And obviously Commissioner McFoy seems like a nice guy too. But they're making a big mistake. We have to do something about this now and get this started. I don't want to be here next year in January. I got things to do. You guys got other things to worry about. Let's get the fluoride started. I do want to introduce Dr. Amy Cryan, who is a pediatric dentist who sees this up close. I teach at the University of Buffalo. I don't see it as much, but she can tell you about cases that she's seen in her practice. It's evident already what's going on. The studies show 1/3 to 1/2 less decay. Constant studies have been done on this. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter.
Skip ahead a little bit here.
This helps their teeth develop stronger, and when their permanent teeth develop, they have a little more protection from cavities. Adults also benefit from fluoridated water. Studies show a decrease in dental cavities for adults between 20 and 40% just from drinking fluoridated water. As dental care and healthcare providers, we can only help those that come into our offices, but you can help every person in Buffalo. Fluoridated drinking water helps every single child and adult in the community. I would like to impress upon you the importance of getting optimal fluoride back into the tap water of the residents of Buffalo's water. Thank you for your time and your hard work on this matter.
So again, a major issue in Buffalo that doesn't really get much attention, and it should be, because we're all affected. We all drink, the city water. So a good person on Twitter said this should be a lead story in every newscast. So a failure of government that fluoride issue exists at all. So again, there's been no transparency on the issue. They took fluoride out of the water without telling anyone, which no matter what side of the fence you sit on, I think we all agree that it needs to be clear. Is there fluoride? Is there not? What's the plan? And yeah, so that's a major issue in our city. I mean, we have major issues in our community about lead poisoning, not just in the water, but also, in old paint and whatnot. And there's lots of environmental issues, and we're so close to, the Great Lakes that our water is an important asset that we need to protect. So those were the committee updates this week. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So for the final segment, I'm going to jump into some of the audit work I've been doing in the city. So let's move on.